You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
Hey, want a cookie? Oh, I know you just ate, so you're craving something a little sweet. Besides, one cookie isn't gonna kill you. How about half? Just a bite? Bite it. Bite it. Bite it.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. Your affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on a path to successful weight loss by quieting food noise.
Bite it.
Shh. Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised. My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm discussing the disappearance and death of 16-year-old Anaiah Walker from my hometown, Phoenix, Arizona. I first saw Anaiah's name when I was researching a different case, right there in the executive summary of a report by the Center for the Rights of Abused Children, titled Disappearing and Dying: Why 20,000 Kids Disappear from Foster Care Every Year, and How to End This Crisis. The first page of the report reads in part, quote, Anaiah Walker was 15 when she went missing from Arizona's foster care system in December 2019. 5 months later, her body, shoeless and disfigured, was found discarded on the median of a freeway. It took the police 12 days to identify the child. Anaiah was one of the estimated 20,000 children who go missing from the child protection system every year. State agencies weren't required to report missing foster children to law enforcement until 2014. Since then, reports of children missing from care have more than doubled. Protocols and best practices for the search and recovery of missing foster children are scarce, and laws outlining search requirements are virtually non-existent. Traffickers know that children without stable families are easy prey. Research overwhelmingly shows that most sexually trafficked children are from foster care. Some children, like Anaiah, are found dead. Some are never found. End quote. This is the case of Anaiah Walker. It's hard to know exactly where to begin Anaiah's story, and I'll warn you that it feels incomplete. Anaiah spent many years in and out of group homes in the foster care system, which means she met and likely lost many people she developed relationships with. I imagine Anaiah touched a lot of lives. She was considered to be a chronic runner from the system, so she was never in one place for very long. But let's start from the beginning with what we do know. Anaiah was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, and lived with her parents until she was 7, but they eventually split up. Her father, Adrian, moved to San Diego, California, and her mother, Sherika, moved to Phoenix, Arizona. At first, Anaiah was with her mother in Phoenix, but Sherika says her daughter's behavior got progressively worse until she was basically out of control. At that point, Anaiah is sent to live with her father in San Diego, but Anaiah's behavior did not improve. Then, according to the Justice for Anaiah Walker Foundation website, quote, in 2017, Anaiah was returned to Phoenix by her father, ultimately placed in the temporary custody of the Arizona Department of Child Safety, and court-ordered to reside in a group home to complete therapy and counseling, end quote. So in 2017, Anaiah enters the Arizona foster care system. By the spring of 2018, when Anaiah was just 13 years old, she and another child, age 14, run from the group home. Unfortunately, like a lot of children running from the foster care system, predators found them pretty soon after. When the kids went to meet up with who they thought were teenage boys, they say they were instead met by brothers Jamal Pennington, age 33, and Camille Pennington, age 26. It's not clear where they met, but both kids say they were stalked by the brothers before being held captive by them at the Payless Inn in downtown Phoenix. Both children state they were instructed to walk the area to sell crack cocaine. They were also listed on Backpage and given a quota to make $250 a day. If they didn't meet the quota, they were beaten. For 5 days, these children were horribly physically and sexually abused. Then, on April 4th, 2018, Anaiah and her friend make it to a Circle K gas station, where they tell the clerk that they were forced to sell drugs and sex for the past 5 days, and ask for them to call the police. The Phoenix police respond, separate the kids, and they tell the same story. Then, nearly 2 weeks later, on April 16th, both brothers are found near the Payless Inn and arrested for aggravated assault and child sex trafficking. 25-year-old Aaliyah Barganier was also arrested on charges of child sex trafficking and sexual conduct with a minor. This is all before Anaiah's 14th birthday. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Unfortunately, Anaiah's story doesn't get much better from here. Her family says she never fully recovered from this. She would talk about being terrified that she would be found and punished for going to the police. From here, she's in and out of group homes. Basically, she kept running away, kept getting trafficked, and then found herself back at another group home. We don't know who was grooming her or perpetrating the abuse, and statements from those who knew her are often vague and confusing. Sometimes blame is placed on Anaiah for hanging out with the wrong group of friends or choosing a bad lifestyle. So I just want to say, right here, right now, children do not choose to be trafficked. They do not have the ability to choose to be sex workers. They do not fall into the wrong crowd and do bad things. They are groomed by predators. And those predators come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and genders. When I spoke with kids who ran away from the group homes I worked for, they would talk about how that abuse felt like love. How even someone just taking them to get their nails done was the most affection they'd felt sometimes in their whole lives. That's how grooming works. These predators don't tell these children that they will be abused. They tell them that they'll be safe, that they'll be free, that they'll have all the money they need to buy whatever they want. When, of course, the darker reality is they're being trafficked, horribly abused, and threatened if they try to get out. According to Dominique Rowe-Sepowitz, sex trafficking expert at Arizona State University, about 80% of runaway children who are sex trafficked are in the custody of the state's child welfare system when they are trafficked. And according to a report from the Arizona Attorney General's office, the average trafficking victim in Arizona is 14 years old when they are first trafficked. That's 1 year older than Anaiah was when she escaped her abusers in 2018. Children who run from the foster care system are prime prey for predators. While some children are placed into loving homes and more ideal situations, many aren't. A lot of kids like Anaiah are crammed into group homes with a lot of other kids, which means they don't get a lot of attention, and oftentimes are outright abused. There's no privacy and very little freedom. The agency I worked for housed 10 children per house, and that was considered kind of luxurious for the industry at that time. So when one of these kids meets an adult predator posing as a teenager who says, "Come stay with me, you'll have your own room, I'll take you shopping," whatever line they use, that can be really appealing to these kids, so they run, not knowing they ran right into the arms of someone who plans to traffic them. And once they're in, it's not easy to get out. These people will threaten them, their families, their younger siblings, whatever it takes to keep them quiet and making money. So again, for the record, these kids don't choose this lifestyle. They don't make bad choices and end up there. Kids are groomed, abused, and manipulated into believing that that situation is better than the alternative, and by the time they want out, it's too late. But some do get out, some escape, like Anaiah. When that happens, when a child runs from a group home situation, often the agency running the homes will take the child back in. But in some cases, that agency can't take them back because they simply don't have an open bed for them. Or it's decided by their caseworker that after their experience, they need a higher level of care not offered by a traditional group home. That's when they go to a therapeutic or behavioral group home. There are a few different terms for these facilities. Now, there's a big difference between a regular group home and a therapeutic group home. These are basically the group homes for kids who get kicked out of regular group homes. These therapeutic group homes operate less like a family atmosphere and more like an institution. They are often advertised as higher levels of care in a therapeutic healing environment, but that isn't always the case. The timeline of exactly where Anaiah was and when is fuzzy, and that's fair. These records for kids in the foster care system are sealed for a reason. But in a video Anaiah's father posted to the Justice for Anaiah Walker Foundation Facebook page, he mentions Anaiah going to a facility called Mingus Mountain in northern Arizona. This is a facility I heard a lot about when I worked with kids in foster care. While I can't speak to the quality of treatment there or the conditions because I've never seen them myself, I remember a lot of staff telling the kids they were lucky to be with us and not somewhere like Mingus Mountain. So I wanted to dive deeper into Mingus Mountain. When you visit their website, the About Us section reads, quote, "Mingus Mountain Youth Treatment Center is a Joint Commission accredited behavioral health inpatient residential treatment center for girls. Our ability to treat and motivate our clients toward a positive, healthy future results in long-term success for our clients and their families. Our treatment program combines relational engagement, caring and well-trained staff, careful medical treatment, individualized psychotherapy and education, and numerous activities, including our unique equestrian program." End quote. So you can pay to send your child to Mingus Mountain, but they also offer placements for children in state custody like Anaiah. Now that we've heard how Mingus Mountain advertises itself, let's read some real reviews from people who say they've experienced the program. The facility currently has a 2.2-star rating on Google. One of the 1-star reviews reads, quote, "I still have nightmares about this place. The way they restrain the kids." End quote. Another 1-star review reads in part, quote, "It's scary. People die. Good people don't make it out, and the staff makes it seem like they did it to themselves, or an unfortunate event happened. There's multiple incidents where staff would abuse us. They would physically beat us into silence. They would grab us by our hair if we didn't comply that immediate second, even to get our shoes on. We almost never rode the horses. And any pictures sent to our parents of us happy wasn't the case. We were forced to take those photos. We were forced to act like everything was okay. There was multiple people who tried to kill themselves from how horrible the staff is. Please, for the love of God, if you want to send your child here, I promise that is not the answer. There's so many more efficient ways of helping your child. Anywhere but here. So many parents lost their children to this evil place." End quote. There are so many more reviews just like this. People allege that children go missing from the facility and are never found. that children are sexually abused, and a lot more. The basic theme is abuse. There are even people who claim to be former staff urging parents not to send their children there. But I wanted to dig even deeper, and I learned a lot. Mingus Mountain is owned by Sequel Youth and Family Services. They are a for-profit, $500 million company out of California. They own many facilities across the country, including Mingus Mountain. In a very powerful expose done by reporters at the Imprint and the San Francisco Chronicle in 2020, a 15-year-old named Kayla describes her time at this facility. Like Anaiah, Kayla had some behavioral issues. She took her mom's car without permission, then got in trouble for cutting off her ankle monitor and running away. So Kayla sent to Mingus Mountain for treatment. She says upon arrival, she was told she was not allowed to speak Spanish, which, according to the article, is her preferred language. She was not allowed to speak to the other residents without permission, and says the staff hurt the other residents often, even giving one of them a black eye while another staff member held the resident down. After an investigation in the summer of 2020, Mingus Mountain was ordered to stop all admissions to the facility until they could address the safety concerns. They would later be fined for apparently not keeping the facilities clean, causing a COVID outbreak that affected more than 90 residents, including Kayla. According to Kayla, the kids who got sick were quarantined in the gym, where there were just a bunch of mattresses set up on the floor. And apparently no one was coming in to clean. So all these kids were just laying there sick while food and garbage piled up around them, which of course eventually attracted bugs and more germs. Honestly, there's so much more. There is a website called unsilence.org that compiles stories from people who have been abused in facilities like Mingus Mountain, and there is no shortage of reports on there about this place. But this was the therapeutic healing facility that, according to her father, Anaiah was sent to at some point. Now, I don't know if Anaiah was abused or ran from this facility. Mingus Mountain is in the middle of nowhere in Prescott, Arizona. There's nothing around for miles, so I can't imagine running from the facility is easy. And I also imagine that's likely by design. But we do know that in 2019, Anaiah is out of Mingus Mountain and ends up at another facility called Devereaux Behavioral Treatment Center, now back near Phoenix. Devereaux also has no shortage of complaints from the children who have been housed there, in addition to a pretty major scandal where 2 teenagers went missing from the facility. Anaiah's mother has outlined her last conversation with her daughter while she was at Devereaux. It wasn't long after Anaiah was admitted. They discussed some clothing her mother sent her, and the possibility that she could visit when she progressed into another part of the program. In this call, Anaiah was looking forward to the future. When she was younger, she and her sister spent a lot of time watching Grey's Anatomy, and her grandmother was in the medical field. So Anaiah decided she wanted to go to school to be a phlebotomist. Before Anaiah went into the foster care system, she excelled in school. She was studying DNA mutations at age 13 just for fun, and often found herself bored in class because she could easily ace the material. At this point, Anaiah is just 15. I have no doubt that she would have realized her dreams of being a phlebotomist or whatever she ultimately wanted to do. But that's just not how it worked out for Anaiah. Apparently, while out on a trip to a skating rink with the facility in December, Anaiah ran. But this time, Anaiah didn't come back and was officially reported missing.
This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together, and Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse, so I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice.
It's baseball, but so much more. Go bananas for Banana Ball with ESPN on Disney+. The greatest show in sports?
Are you kidding me?
Is the phenomenon everyone's talking about.
The trick play to the plate.
Catch the Savannah Bananas and other fan-favorite teams all season long with select games streaming with ESPN on Disney+.
Let's go!
U.S. residents, 18 plus only. Select Banana Ball games available to all Disney Plus subscribers. Terms apply.
In January 2020, Anaiah is arrested in California for loitering with intent to commit prostitution. According to her father, she gave her older adult sister's name and was released. They had no idea Anaiah was a 15-year-old missing from Arizona, so she slipped right through their fingers. Then in June, Anaiah's mother got a phone call from the Buckeye Police Department. At first, she was excited, sure they were going to tell her that Anaiah had been found. She'd run so many times before, but that's not the news they had for her. Instead, they explained that Anaiah had passed away. She was the victim of a hit and run. Her remains were found along Interstate 10, on the median west of Watson Road, basically in a ditch. The details about Anaiah's body are horrific. Investigators believe her body was there for several days, and it took 12 days to identify her. They had to rehydrate the skin of her fingers to get the prints for a match. In the end, the medical examiner determined her cause of death was high-velocity impact. It seemed like a clear hit and run. Now, when Anaiah's father hears the news, he drives straight from San Diego to Phoenix using the most direct route, which is the I-10, the freeway Anaiah was found on. He pulls off the interstate at Watson Road. There's a lot of desert around, but there are some businesses nearby and a neighborhood. He asks everyone he sees if they remember seeing Anaiah, but says no one was able to help him. At first, investigators figure that maybe Anaiah was hitchhiking and just got struck by a car who fled the scene. But once they learned more about her past, they began to consider foul play. Anaiah was a victim of sex trafficking from age 13 until her death at age 16. She was also supposed to testify against her abusers in court not long before she lost her life. Obviously, there's a motive for abusers to silence victims who may plan to testify against them in court. But let's dig deeper. We don't know what Anaiah was doing after she went missing from her last group home. She was gone for 5 months. We know she was arrested in January 2020 in California, but she was released. Obviously, she somehow made her way back to Arizona. Now, unfortunately, there is no surveillance video from where Anaiah was found. And the Buckeye Police Department has not been able to find a single witness. When Anaiah was found, she didn't have a phone, purse, or any jewelry with her. She wasn't even wearing socks or shoes. So how does someone find themselves on a freeway with no shoes, phone, or a purse, wallet, money, anything? Was Anaiah possibly kicked out of a nearby home, forced to find her way to someone that could help her? Like I said, there is a small neighborhood near where she was found. Was Anaiah kicked out of a vehicle and then struck by it? Was she hitchhiking? Was she murdered and moved to this location? We just don't know. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the Buckeye Police Department does either, because Anaiah's case just sits for a year. Then in May 2021, the Buckeye Police Department releases a statement. After an entire year of investigating, they say that they've recovered and finally identified 3 parts of a vehicle they believe was involved in Anaiah's death. They have the driver's side door mirror cover, a portion of the left side of the front bumper, and the left front fog light cover. They say these parts came from a 2016 to 2018 Honda Civic EX or LX in Midnight Burgundy Pearl. They also emphasize that this was a rare color for the vehicle. So they release this description and ask the public to be on the lookout and submit any tips about people who may have replaced these specific parts on their vehicle around or after the time of Anaiah's death. Then Anaiah's case just sits again. In November 2022, the Buckeye Police Department holds a press conference. Here they announce that they're increasing the reward for information about Anaiah's death. It's now up to $12,000. The month this episode airs, Anaiah should be celebrating her 19th birthday. Maybe she would have been in school, working on becoming a phlebotomist, rewatching Grey's Anatomy with her older sister. Unfortunately, that's where Anaiah's case is today. The charges against Jamal Pennington in relation to Anaiah were dropped. In October 2021, Camille Pennington was found guilty on the charges of possessing and selling narcotics and physical abuse of a child. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with a credit for 1,289 days he had already served. He also got about $4,000 in fines and supervised probation for the rest of his life. The last I could find of Camille was from about a month before recording this episode. He was apparently arrested for monitor device interference. The documents for Aaliyah Barganier have been sealed, but according to the docket for her case, it appears that a plea agreement was made, and she received probation. The website Anaiah's traffickers used to exploit her has since been taken down and is pending legal action. As of recording this episode, no one has been named a person of interest in the death of Anaiah Walker, and no charges have been filed. At the beginning of this episode, I warned you that Anaiah's story would feel incomplete. Because it is. No one knows what Anaiah went through in those group homes, why she ran, who she ran to or from, and the abuse she suffered throughout it all. We almost have no information about how she died. You know, believe it or not, a lot of the time I keep my opinions about law enforcement to myself on this show. I understand that they're human and no one is perfect. But I had questions about this investigation. Mainly how it took an entire year to identify these car parts. Basically, I was just trying to gauge the sense of urgency the Buckeye Police Department puts on a case of a black teenager with a history of being sex trafficked. Which, after what I saw in the Daniel Robinson case and the complete lack of urgency there, I think is a pretty fair question. Now, let me say for the record, I am not a car person. I've had my same car for 10 years now. I just don't care. If it gets me from point A to point B safely and with air conditioning here in Arizona, I'm happy. So I had no idea how easy it would be to identify these parts. But I had a feeling a year was a long time. So I reached out to my friends who are mechanics, one for over 25 years. Every single one told me the same thing. There's absolutely no way it should have taken over a year to identify those parts. One said if he just had the fog lamp cover, it would have taken him 2 minutes. A day if they just had a piece of the bumper to do a paint match, especially with a rare color. He added that the fog lights on a Honda Civic from 2016 to 2018 grew in size each year. He says any mechanic should be able to look at the cover and tell authorities exactly what year it came from. Now, I'm not bringing this up to slam the police department, honestly. I bring it up because I hope that makes you care more about Anaiah. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like her case is just not a priority. I can't change what Anaiah Walker went through, and I can't bring her back. I can't make the Buckeye Police Department act with urgency, but I can share Anaiah's story, even if it is incomplete, and I can ask you to do the same. Which, of course, brings me right to our call to action. As always, on our website and social media channels, you will find graphics that are very easy to share. These will have information about the vehicle law enforcement believes struck and killed Anaiah Walker. Again, that is a 2016 to 2018 Honda Civic EX or LX in the color Midnight Burgundy Pearl. If we can help find this car, we might be able to figure out where Anaiah was in the months leading up to her death. Please share for Anaiah. As a reminder, 16-year-old Anaiah Walker was found deceased on Interstate 10 near Watson Road in Buckeye, Arizona on May 22, 2020. Anaiah was black, with black hair and brown eyes. Unfortunately, her height and weight before her death are unknown. Anyone with information about Anaiah's death or Anaiah's whereabouts before her death is asked to call Silent Witness at 480-948-6377. You can also submit tips online at silentwitness.org. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice Media original. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. And for even more content, check out my other podcast, Disappearances, only on Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Whether you're packing for a vacation or dressing for a wedding, Nordstrom has head-to-toe looks for wherever summer takes you. From swimwear and bold color to romantic florals and dresses that make an entrance, find the right style for every unforgettable moment. Shop new arrivals from brands you love like Farm Rio, Free People, Vince, Waif, and Stod. Plus free shipping and returns and styling help whenever you need it make it all so easy. Shop now in stores at Nordstrom.com or download the Nordstrom app.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the Keys. Any leads on who they might have been running for?
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
All right, welcome to the Secret After Show. The door is open. I have turned the air conditioning on. If you hear a slightly different hum now, it's Arizona. I can't keep it off for that long anymore, you guys. I also have popcorn on my lap, so we are ready to go. And I have a lot to talk about in this after show today. Obviously, you guys know I worked with kids in foster care, and cases like this get me fired up. I was also mad that I keep, I went to download this study because I do that. You know, I collect educational resources that I find when I'm researching these cases just so I can go back and reference them. And I was like, oh, this is a great study. And I download it. And I was like, oh, I've already downloaded this before because, yeah, this is how often I'm finding it in these cases. And I don't know what it's going to take to get people to care more about these kids going missing in the foster care system and them being trafficked. So I actually have this study pulled up. This is the same one I read at the beginning of the episode, Disappearing and Dying, Why 20,000 Kids Disappear from Foster Care Every Year and How to End This Crisis. It is a great study for anybody who wants to take a look at it. It's when you find it, it's titled Gen Justice is the company who makes it, but they have since rebranded, and forgive me, I do not remember what they have rebranded to. But if you Google that title, you should be able to find it. You guys, I wanted to really keep riffing on this episode, but I wanted to keep the focus on Anaiah while trying to explain to you kind of the background behind what she was going through, just in my experience working with kids in foster care. Of course, we don't know what Anaiah went through, but I think understanding how these facilities work would probably give us all a pretty good idea. And the other thing from the first page of this report, you guys, is they reference this woman who grew up in foster care, T. Ortiz Walker Pettigrew. And her quote says, "No one looks for us. I really want to make this clear. No one looks for us." And from my experience in the foster care system, that is exactly fucking true. I remember kids would go missing, and some of the biggest concerns were, oh my gosh, how's this going to look in the media? No one cared when these kids went missing. I mean, I will say that staff members cared, but in terms of an overall organization, From where I was sitting, it was more of a PR cover-up. They didn't want people giving interviews. They didn't want to report the kids missing. It's a really messed up system. But let me read you the 3 key takeaways from this report. So it says, in the past 20 years, the cases of over 100,000 missing foster children were closed before the children were located. Some cases were closed as quickly as 6 months, and on children as young as 9 years old. The next one says, an unknown number, but easily in the thousands upon thousands of kids who disappeared from care are trafficked. Children who have been recovered from sex trafficking report that they were given a quota of up to 15 buyers per night. This means a sex trafficking victim may be raped thousands of times a year. Here's the last one. On an average day, 55 children will disappear from the U.S. foster care system, the very system charged with keeping abused children safe. The state should make every effort to keep foster care children safe, and when a child goes missing, spare no effort in finding him or her. Now, I do want to read some of the critical reforms that they suggest. So they say educate foster children about sex trafficking and related dangers. And I will say that the agency I worked for did that. We would, I would personally talk to the kids. They knew, the owners of this company knew that I had a missing sister. And this is long before I was fighting for Alyssa, long before I knew what the reality of her situation was, right? When I believed that she was a runaway who never came back. So that's often what I would talk to the kids about. I have a sister who ran away and she never came back. And I want to make sure that you understand that's something that could happen to you. So not only were there actually official presentations where they would talk about the dangers of being trafficked, and some of these stories, because I worked with staff who I didn't directly care for the children. I was an event manager. I was in charge of creating enriching opportunities for them. Things like soliciting tickets for Disney on Ice, taking them to the zoo. I had the easy part of it all, and I will admit that. But I learned a lot from the staff who directly cared for these children, who were with them every single day in these houses, at school, whatever it might be. And some of these stories are horrific, and we really didn't sugarcoat it a lot with the kids. In these presentations that I would watch, along with the kids, they would talk about, I cared for a child who ran away and they ended up locked in a cage underneath somebody's bed for years until they were finally able to escape. So yeah, back to the critical reforms, educate foster children about sex trafficking and related dangers. I will say the agency I worked for did that, but I have to assume that others don't if they consider this a critical reform. Also, it says, give teens a reason to stay in school by establishing a personal foster care trust for each teen. That would be amazing. Appoint an attorney for every kid in state care. Also amazing. Require photo identification cards for foster children. Require searches for missing children and keep court cases open. Seems like that's absolutely something that should be already happening. Utilize 21st century technology and the private sector. Provide law enforcement with the resources to conduct full-fledged searches for missing children. Provide them with the resources. I would argue they have the resources. Amend state confidentiality laws to allow disclosure information about missing children. These all seem really obtainable. Some of these things, right? Like, establishing a trust for a child, that is creating resources out of thin air. But something about this, provide law enforcement with the resources to conduct full-fledged searches for missing children, rubs me the wrong way. Because I would argue that happens all the time for, the blessed cases that actually get those resources and attention. Now, you guys, I could go through this whole report with you. It's fantastic. But I just wanted to highlight some of those things, talk about the efforts that could hopefully help change this, because that's what I'm hoping for. I don't want to just keep screaming into the void about these kids. I want to see some reform and some change. So again, I hope that all of this, Anaiah's very incomplete story, at least makes you more aware. And, best case scenario, just makes you care and share her story. And like I said, I have a lot to talk about here. So I do want to talk about why kids run from the foster care system. And I touched on it briefly, but I just want to reiterate that a lot of the times, even the company I worked for, which touted itself as the Hilton of foster care, and, by social workers, it was seen that way. Our agency was seen as like one of the best places that these kids could go because, honestly, the houses they lived in were beautiful, better than any house I've ever lived in my entire life, including right now. They had, and I was a part of those processes, right? So I would see, the things being bought for the houses. They were decorated. They had pictures of the kids up. But that's just looks. I will say that also. A part of my job also was every day I had to read IRs, which were incident reports, which when you're a child in foster care and you do anything, they make an incident report. If these children cuss, you're supposed to write an incident report. Part of my responsibilities would often be driving the kids to and from enriching activities. So me in a bus full of 10 children. And I would often say, please don't curse so I don't have to write a stupid incident report about it. Because I also know that affects kids' chances of getting adopted and getting fostered. They kind of come with this rap sheet of you, if you will, so that these adults know what they're getting into. They understand the specific concerns for each child, perhaps a behavioral problem, which I would argue cursing is not. But either way, I read these reports every single day, and a lot of them were not pretty. Unfortunately, like in any industry where you're caring for children, it does attract some bad people who want to be around kids for the wrong reason, and I'll leave it at that. I'm sure you can fill in the rest with your imagination because sometimes these kids were horribly abused, even in, the facility I worked for, which again was considered one of the best. So why do kids run from foster care? Because a lot of the times it's horrible, even in the best case scenario. I would often see teenagers acting out because they couldn't do things like just get some privacy. I can't imagine being a 13, 14, 15, whatever, any type of teenager and not being able to have a space where I can close a door and just chill out. Like I said, the agency I worked for, there were 10 children per house, which means nobody had their own bedroom, right? Even in a 4 or 5 bedroom house, these kids don't have their own rooms. And oftentimes, I believe if I remember correctly, it was a rule. They're not allowed to shut their door, right? The staff has to be able to see them all the time, basically. So kids run for a lot of reasons. It's not always just abuse. Sometimes it's just that lack of freedom. And again, when you're talking to somebody online who says, oh, that sounds horrible, come with me. You can come live with my family, whatever it might be. You can't blame kids for running. Like, that is ridiculously appealing, when you look at their situation. So why do kids run? All sorts of reasons. And I don't think they should be punished for that. The lack of media these kids get when they do run is astounding. These organizations have every reason to cover that up, or just not focus on it in the media. So oftentimes when kids go missing from these group homes, there's no advocate out there in the media for them. Their house manager or their staff, whoever it might be, their caseworker, they're not, it's not a good look for them to advertise that these kids are running, not for the facility or for the state. It's a really scary, different situation that I just wish more people knew about. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about cases like Anaiah's. Her family has been very vocal in the media. I will not say that she has no one out there fighting for her because that's not true. But a lot of times these kids don't have anyone. I'll tell you right now, I'm trying to track down a girl that went missing from the facility I worked at when I worked there. She ran a few times. She'd come back. I can tell you that I was looking on sites like Backpage and Craigslist and all that, trying to find her because we knew that she was being trafficked. So I'm literally still trying to find her. And when I look up her name, all I can find is a single sentence from Arizona DPS about her being missing. So I'm trying to get the records. I'm trying to find out what is happening with her case, if anybody even cares, if anybody is looking for her. But that's the reality. And that's why I wanted to cover Anaiah's case too, is, I think I found one podcast that had covered her case before, and it was, mostly an interview with her father, it seems. And it's hard because how do you cover a case like this when there's not a lot of information? If I wouldn't have included all the stuff about, kind of explaining what foster care is like, this episode would have been like 10 minutes long. And, I know a lot of people will listen, but a lot of people also see a 10-minute episode and go, meh, not for me. And that's hard. Balancing what you as a listener wants with, cases I care about is difficult. So, like I mentioned, I'm so rambly today. I hope you enjoy it. This is why I say thank you for tolerating me every single week. But yeah, that's why I kind of put that disclaimer that Anaiah's story was going to be incomplete, because it is, because we don't have all these pieces about what happened to her. The state's not going to give it up. These individual facilities are not going to give it up. I'm sure a lot of the kids that she was with might still be in care. Anaiah would be 19 now. And some kids do choose to stay past the age of 18 for a variety of reasons. They're given the opportunity, so that they can still develop their lives and try to get out with at least a little bit of money and a plan. But, so I'm sure there are kids out there. I'm sure there's a lot of people who know more about Anaiah than I do. And I hope someday, they're able to speak out in a way that's meaningful and helpful. And I really hope the Buckeye Police Department has spoken with them, because this investigation is lacking, in my opinion. Again, I hope there's more behind the scenes. We never know what they really have and what's just public, but everything I found, there's like nothing. They have nothing on Anaiah's case, which is really scary. I will also say something I omitted from the main episode, because I got some different opinions about this. And I'm not a car person. I am not a car person. But basically, we know on Anaiah's official poster, we have these car models, right? A Honda Civic EX or LX in Midnight Burgundy Pearl. And in at least 2 posts from the Buckeye Police Department, they called the model a Honda Civic LE. And so I was confused, right? This happens all the time when you research. You find conflicting information. And I was like, oh my gosh, did I get it wrong? I go to look it up, and it doesn't seem like the Honda LE is a real thing. These are trims, apparently, we're talking about. Again, I'm not a car person. Please forgive me. The only thing I could find is there is an RLE, which is a really rare model. But that's not the point. The thing is, it's the car they're looking for is not an LE, according to the official poster, according to most of the reports I read. And in one of the posts on the Buckeye Police Department's Facebook page, somebody points that out, which is where I was first directed. I was like, oh, but it says, hey, there's no such thing as a Honda Civic LE. And they never corrected it. So when people go to look for the information about Anaiah, there's all these different models. And again, you guys, when I was talking to this mechanic and he was like, oh no, every single year from 2016 to 2018, that fog light gets bigger. And he says that on these fog lights, the numbers are 3D printed in multiple places with barcodes. And he said he has no idea why they don't know exactly what year it is. And unfortunately, from the pictures I was able to provide him of the actual covers, it's just the outside. So he doesn't have dimensions, he doesn't have these numbers, so he can't tell us what year it comes from. But yeah, so not to slam the Buckeye Police Department, but after Daniel Robinson, after living in this state, I was pretty disappointed by that. It does seem like they could probably figure out what year this is. It seems like it was very likely that they would have been able to figure out what they've given the public before a fucking year, you guys. But yeah, I will also say that Anaiah's case, has inspired me to do a new Patreon episode. So if you guys know, over on Patreon, I do a new series called Dark Truth, where sometimes it's a little bit lighter. One time I talked about a reality TV show, and sometimes it's a little bit darker. This month, I'm talking about Pornhub and basically how it's fucking built for trafficking. So really, really dark. And Anaiah's case inspired me to do one on the troubled teen industry, which was all those facilities I was talking about. And also, the people in the fight for that. You have people like Paris Hilton and Bad Baby from the Dr. Phil show who want to talk about their experience and talk about how messed up that industry is and rampant with abuse. So, yeah. Anaiah's case really inspired me because it outraged me so much. And again, I hope from anything from this very, very long, this might be the longest after show ever, you guys, from these very long rants, that it makes you care too. Because in my experience, these kids who, are missing from the foster care system need some extra attention. They tend to go a little more unnoticed, especially Anaiah's case. And I would love it if you would share. I would love it if you would join me and stand up for these kids, because they really, really need it. But as always, thank you for tolerating me here in my very rambly, very, very rambly today after show. I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Popcorn, do you want to say anything? Do you want to say goodbye? No, Popcorn still hates podcasting, confirmed. Sorry, guys. Why are you so rude? Why are you so rude to our friends?